Welcome to Love Local, the podcast by Jennifer Cornish Design, where we spotlight the incredible independent businesses in Newbury and the surrounding areas. I'm your host, Jen, and each episode I'll be chatting with a local business owner to hear their story, how they started, the challenges they faced, and the creative and marketing decisions that helped them grow. Welcome to Love Local. On this week's episode, I'm joined by Julie from Fenton Elliot Solicitors. Welcome, Julie. Thank you for joining me. Did you want to tell me a bit about how you joined Fenton Elliot and how you started with Simon?
Sure, yeah. Well, firstly, thank you for having me here. It's great to join you and have a chat this morning. So Fenton Elliot was started by Simon Fenton probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. At that time, I was working as an employment lawyer for another firm in Newbury, and I'd been with there for kind of 15, 20 years, actually. And we were often opponents, Simon and I, so that was how I knew him. We were often against each other in the tribunal, or arguing the different sides of contracts and correspondence. So I knew he was looking to grow the firm, and I came to join him coming up for 3 years ago. And from there, we've been looking at building the team and building the firm overall. So Fenton Elliot itself has 2 distinct areas. So Simon and I work in the employment area, and we've been joined by Charlotte Grew, who's another experienced employment solicitor. And then the second part of the firm is run by Chris Sutton, who deals with family law.
Yeah, but today we're going to mainly focus on the HR side, which is what you deal with.
Sure.
So talk me through a bit about HR within a business. So I think a lot of people think about HR within a corporate setting. They don't really think about it for a business, let alone a small business. Yep. So talk me through a little bit about that and how you work with businesses.
Sure. So with the employment rights legislation, we had the first big bit of legislation in 1996, where you were meant to give every person who works for you a contract, and there were various other rights that sit with that, so protection from unfair dismissal and so on. And the reason HR is so important is it's all about that relationship and getting it right. And there are a whole raft of obligations you've got to meet when you bring an employee into your business. Minimum wage, not least, to make sure you meet those obligations. But also there's a whole load of rules about how you end that working relationship if you decide they're not working out. So with businesses, we might help them if they think they've suddenly got too many employees for what they need, so they might need to run a redundancy process. So we'll help them look at what a genuine redundancy situation is, what the process is that they need to follow to make it a fair dismissal, and alongside that, what the statutory payments are that might apply as well. So there's a statutory redundancy payment, for example. Yeah. It's a fixed calculation set by the government. There's actually a really good gov.uk calculator, so you can work it out if you're thinking about it ever. But we also help with all the other kind of issues that crop up along the way. Yeah. So employees have statutory right to raise a grievance, and so they can complain about what's going on. In certain circumstances, that might be quite easily resolved. It might be a complaint about something in particular, or it might be that they didn't like how they were treated, and it might just be a sorry from the employer and we didn't realise how that was impacting you. Sometimes it might be more complicated. The grievances can also lead to other legal obligations because there are whistleblowing protections for certain categories of information that get raised. Health and safety obviously is quite a big issue there if there are concerns raised by an employee. Yeah. What else? So we deal with everything from helping draft the contracts that meet these legal requirements and help keep them up to date. So there are more changes coming with the Employment Rights Act 25 that got passed in December. Key one there to be aware of is some of the rights about unfair dismissal didn't kick in until 2 years service with an employee. That's going to be taken right back to 6 months. Okay. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of impact that has on the tribunal system. And we deal with handbooks as well that sit with it. So there are all sorts of policies and procedures that you have to have by law, but there's also a number of other things that are good practice to have written down so that everyone knows what's going on.
So when on someone's journey, should they contact a HR specialist? Because I'm guessing you kind of get a lot of people that maybe do DIY stuff as well, that are just growing their business that might not want the expense of a solicitor. So where on that journey would you recommend someone?
It's a really interesting question, because one of the things that we like to do with the businesses that we work with is try and get ahead of any issues before they arise, because often prevention is better than cure. Certainly in the employment tribunal arena, it can be much more expensive to fix it later than to have the proper processes in place from the outset. But it is very much a personal decision and choice for the culture of the business. And certainly with the rise of AI and all the internet options, there are some pretty good templates out there, actually. But I think a warning would be is just going back to basics and getting those foundations right can actually put you in quite good stead going forward. So what might feel like an expensive upfront investment, it might be worthwhile to know that you've got the statutory notice periods right or the statutory holiday right from the outset, rather than an interpretation of what.
And do you find that people mostly come to you when they've got an incident? And if they do that, is that and if they do that, is that more costly to the business? So what I'm trying to say is, like, obviously people only go to HR if there's really an issue, don't they? Yeah. But obviously if they were to start that journey earlier on, it probably would be more cost effective for them.
Yeah, potentially it can. But and then, you know, with that, quite a lot of our work does come from that fallout. It's this individual said something he shouldn't have, or the comments have been interpreted in a way that's actually, you know, potentially discriminatory or something else. So you can't be prescriptive about absolutely everything, though. There'll always be things that crop up, but I think the key with it is not to bury your head in the sand. If there's an issue that's bubbling, actually sometimes one of the best things the employer can do is say, really sorry we got that wrong, how can we fix it, what can we do? And that takes a lot of heat out of the situation, and also has an impact on what financial remedy might be recoverable if they proceed with a claim that's unreasonable because they've tried to fix it.
You mentioned AI a bit earlier. How have you found that's impacted the industry? And also, I'm guessing you're getting a lot of people DIYing AI stuff as well that think they're a solicitor. How have you found that so far?
So it's been really interesting to see the gradual influx of grievances in particular, which have been run through AI to kind of say, you know, these are the crux of my concerns. What else can I add, or how detailed can I get it? And you get something that might be sort of 2 complaints a page and something that can be fixed fairly easily to something that's suddenly become 5 to 10 pages with a lot of other stuff to wade through to try and work out. Okay, so you're
getting it from both ends. So you're getting it both from complainant and employer. That's really interesting. Okay.
So and to flip it back to the business's point of view, actually I think it's quite useful for business, because again, that same inflated grievance that you've got, you can run it through AI to get your summary and work out what the key points are. The warning is about confidentiality, obviously, and every business will need to look at what policies they've got in place for what they use, but also from their own perspective. If they're feeding confidential business information into ChatGPT, it's not a good idea unless you've got a closed account.
And also, like, AI and ChatGPT, it can make it sound really legal. So I'm guessing people have to be really conscious of what they're sending out as an employer. Almost threatening that they're going to legal, but using AI, if that makes sense. I'm guessing that's a really fine line that people are just understanding.
And I think the other thing with the AI is the tone of it as well, exactly as you say. And it can get a mountain out of a molehill, I suppose, just because the tone's wrong and it's missed the level of the communication. But it's an interesting area. One of the things that I run is a HR group locally, and our last topic actually was all about AI and the impact on different HR consultants, different representatives from different businesses, and what they were finding. So
talk to me about that group then. What is that you run?
So it's a group that I run with Michelle Bailey, who runs a HR consultancy called People Essentials. They focus on doing kind of employee engagement surveys, as well as kind of some of the hands-on investigation if there's a HR issue, probably slightly bigger businesses perhaps. And then we meet once a month at the Waterside Centre in Newbury, and we're joined by other local HR consultants or directors who've been lumbered with HR responsibility in smaller businesses, for example. And the idea of the group really is to share ideas and experiences about what's changing, what topics are particularly relevant, which is how we came to the AI discussion, really. It's really informal. Just come along to which session works and whether it captures your interest. It's 8:30 start, so it depends if you feel about mornings, but but it's a really nice group.
Okay. So. You talked about HR within businesses, and most people associate it with sort of bigger businesses. is it just businesses that have employees that need HR? What about if they had contractors, things like that? Where do you need HR?
Okay, that's a really interesting question, and it's actually quite a complicated legal landscape there.
Okay.
And that's all to do with how we ended up with 3 different categories of employment status.
Okay.
So you have your traditional employee,
Yeah.
which kind of got born out of the old master and servant relationship. So the employee is under your control. They can't work for anyone else while you're paying them, and they've got to do the best for the business.
Yeah.
And they have the full suite of rights. So
Yeah.
unfair dismissal, paid holiday, all the other protections and things that sit with it. You then end up with a middle category, which is called workers, which came out from our membership of the European Union. And the idea with a worker is that if they are providing a personal service to the company, they're still meant to get paid holiday and various other rights and bits and pieces. And this is where we've seen all the disputes about Uber drivers, for example, and various other status disputes. And then the third category, you get your self-employed contractors. Now, where it gets difficult is that the lines between all 3 of those often get blurred and get argued about quite a bit. Holiday pay, that's an area that's been disputed about a lot, because if you're a contractor, you don't get paid holiday, but if you're a worker, you do. And the dividing line is all about whether or not that contractor or that individual has to personally provide that service. So traditionally, with a contractor who's providing a service, they could ring up and say, I don't feel like doing that job today because I'm going to get paid more over there. I'm going to send my mate Jack to come and do it instead, for example. And that normally is fine if you're just getting a particular service done. But yeah, it's an interesting and evolving area of law. There's been lots of consultations where they've looked at trying to simplify this because some of the big bits of litigation that we've had. So essentially, to answer your question, I think if you are looking at working with someone, you need to be very clear what sort of control you want to have over the work they're doing for you, and then look at how regular that work is and what sort of relationship is going to work with the business. And it might be that actually it's a part-time employment contract that works better, because then you've got that control. Yes, they'll get the additional rights that go with it, but actually you've got the certainty of what you're getting.
Because I'm guessing, like, small businesses go on that journey of growth, and then eventually I'm guessing the normal path would be start with a contractor, then as the business grows, go to employment and stuff like that. So I'm guessing it's best to, whenever you involve anyone else, just seek that advice from the offset. Just check that the relationship works. And again, there's lots of tools out there, and the gov.uk ones are actually really good. They've got specific employment status checkers, so you can run through a series of questions about what that individual is going to be doing for you to work out which side of the line they fall. It's not necessarily going to be something the tribunal will say, oh, you did that, so that's fine, but it will give you a bit guidance.
of a steer. And again, obviously it's something that the lawyers out there can help them with.
Amazing. So if we talk about branding and marketing within Fenton Elliot and that journey you've been on, and how you've got to where you are.
Okay. So when I first joined Simon, it was just the 2 of us for a while, and then Chris joined us, and then we've grown quite rapidly from there. So we're a firm of 11 of us now. With the marketing, we've evolved quite a bit in terms of the style and promotion that we do. There was quite a lot of time and effort that went into the branding and the look of Fenton Elliot, but we also were quite keen to support the local community, which is why we've got the events like the HR group running. Chris does quite a few different talks with other family lawyers. I also run a business book club, which has been really interesting. And then we've got the kind of Instagram, Facebook. We've been looking at doing regular updates for our website, so we do quite a lot of articles about what's changing in the law. Simon and Chris have done a recent series of podcasts themselves actually as well,
because I'm guessing the industry changed so quickly and things change quickly. You have to keep on the pulse. It's interesting. Obviously you said you link up with other lawyers as well. Is that a common thing to do within the industry? Because obviously there's obviously competition there as well. So how does that work?
I mean, law is quite interesting in that because of the rules around conflict, it's often useful for us to know other lawyers, that if we can't help someone who comes to us, we can say, actually, we can direct you this way. And plus, Newbury, the areas, everyone is quite collaborative, I think, generally. And it's, I don't think it's that unusual, but I guess... it might not necessarily be the perception that lawyers get on.
And talk to me about your business book club. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, okay. So the Business Book Club, originally I set up because I was finding that I had all these great ideas of reading these books and would never get through them. So I thought if we set up a book group, then actually there would be that accountability there. We would need to get to the end of the book by the time that I'd set. And it's been really interesting to look at all sorts of different books that might not have come across my radar as well. The group's really informal. We just kind of catch up every 6 to 8 weeks and review the last book that we're reading. One of the ones that stood out that I think I learned the most from is a book called Surrounded by Idiots, which is all about the red, blue, green, yellow categories of people, and certainly helped me understand how Simon and I can work together, for example. So yeah, it's been really interesting. We're doing the 4-hour work week at the moment, which is interesting because it's a book from 2007. I'm not sure it's aged that well.
Oh, well, okay.
But I haven't finished it yet, so not fair to comment.
That's really interesting. Obviously, when you joined Simon, he was just on his own, and you have massively helped him expand the business. What would you say one of the biggest challenges has been as you've kind of come on board with the business? And is there anything with marketing and design that you found a challenge?
Coming out of my comfort zone and doing things like this, actually. Getting used to being in front of the camera and talking and giving. We've done a few presentations on a bigger scale as well. So we ran something at Shaw House recently. And just kind of finding our voice as well a little bit. And I think Simon and I are very different. So the content that we put out, trying to find the middle road that kind of sounds like both of us.
Yeah. It's really hard to get in front of the camera, especially, and to be the face of the business. I think this is, again, another reason why I do this podcast, because I attempted to film myself on a number of occasions and then really couldn't post it. So I was like, let's start the podcast. But yeah, just kind of getting yourself out there and kind of, I think your business does get to a point where you have to do that. And if you want to expand, if you want to grow, then you do have to kind of be the forefront and the leaders of the industry, which Fenton Elliot are. They are really putting themselves out there in that. But yeah, everyone has a bit of imposter syndrome and everyone's a bit like, oh gosh, I don't know. But I think you guys must be backed by, it's the law, isn't it? So you know what you're talking about, and the law is the law. So it's not necessarily opinion, it's fact, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing because lawyers still quite traditional. It's a lot of the firms are still structured as they have been for years and years. So
what bit of advice would you give then for somebody just starting out within the industry or wanting to set up their business? What kind of guidance would you give them?
I think just one of the key things that I've learned is to have confidence in yourself, and if you've set yourself the challenge and the target, then just go for it. The only limitations are really what you put in front of yourself, and just focus on the business and being a real expert in your field as well, so you know exactly what it is that you want to deliver.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. If anyone wants to find out more about Fenton Elliot Solicitors, your website is
www.fentonelliot.co.uk,
and they can find you on Instagram.
They can, yep. And I think that's just at Fenton Elliot.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Love Local. If you're a small business owner in Newbury or the surrounding area and you've got a story to tell, I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to follow, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Thanks again for listening. I'm Jen, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Love Local.